then I want to move away from it. But if something is coming from inside, then it's like we feel we are internally pierced by that bad desire. So it's a very strong desire. Now there can be many cravings. And we all have some cravings. Not all cravings are that serious. Sometimes when we are hungry, we also feel craving. But okay, you eat food and the craving goes away. The second characteristic of it is this: there are consequences. That means when we give in to the craving, there are problems that come from it. So everybody needs food, everybody feel a craving for food. But there are some people who are foodaholics. Like we have alcoholics, foodaholics. They have eating disorder. For them, when they will just not eat, they will like eat to a point where I have one friend who is a specialist in treating foodaholics. So he said, this is Australia. He said that one time he was called for emergency, and this person, he is a foodaholic, he had been eating chicken. He ate so much chicken that his entire pipe, it got filled, and he couldn't breathe. We have the food pipe and the air pipe. So eventually the doctor who came, he had to open his mouth with a clamp and literally took out chicken from his mouth. It's eating so much. So there is craving, but sometimes the craving, when it has severe consequences. So somebody says, okay, I watch TV. I'm addicted to TV. Well, sometimes you can use the word addiction like that, but okay, you watch TV, you're wasting some time. But it's not that your life is threatened by that. I'm not saying that watching TV is may not be a problem, but when addiction is there, the craving has severe consequences. And not just in spiritual terms, but even in practical terms. So a person is alcoholic, they may lose their health, they may lose their wealth, they may lose their sense of morality, responsibility, everything. And then the third is, there is continuation. That even after experiencing the consequences, the person just can't give it up. There are many people who may say, no, I just can't live without eating meat. But they get one heart attack. The doctor says, if you don't want a heart attack again, you have to give up red meat. And the next day, they give it up. Now, is it that they have great willpower? Well, not necessarily. It's just that when the consequences register, I like meat, but I don't want to be meat. I want to be alive. I don't want this to become dead meat. So I like meat, but I like my life more. I want to be alive more. So when the consequences hit, the person gives it. But sometimes the consequences hit and still the person doesn't give it. Two friends had gone to a bar, both of them were drinking once. And the first person was drinking more and more and more and more. And the second person, I think you have drunk too much to stop. You better stop. This morning, when he woke up, going around, he says, it was a terrible idea. Second friend says, see, I told you, drinking so much was a terrible idea. He says, no, drinking was a great idea. Waking up was a terrible idea. So that person just can't seem to be able to give up. That even if there are consequences, somehow the mind comes up with some rationalization and one continues the behavior. So craving which leads to actions that have consequences, and even after getting the consequences, the person continues that action. So these three, especially if all three are present, then that's an addiction. So now, as I said, not every desire, sometimes I'm addicted to my phone. Well, okay, we may have an uncontrolled, we may have an unhealthy relationship with our phone. We're constantly looking at it. But is it that while driving, we forget that to drive and we're looking at the phone and we hit somebody and we kill somebody, or we injure ourselves? Well, it may not. So sometimes when we are addressing a problem, if we universalize, I'm addicted to my phone, I'm addicted to food, I'm addicted to TV, use that, it can be used in that sense, but sometimes using the word addiction generically trivializes the actual problem. There are people who have very serious problems. If we are not among them, we are fortunate. If we are among them, we still have resources available. So this is the broad understanding of addiction. That was the first part. Now I'll try to explain from the Bhagavad Gita's perspective how some desire can become so strong as to be addictive. So essentially the Bhagavad Gita explains that our existence is three levels. There is the soul, the mind, and the body. Now, you could say the outer world is the outer world with various tempting objects in it. So in the outer world, from here, certain stimuli come in. Say somebody sees, oh, I want to drink that. Oh, somebody sees a punch, I want to drink a punch. Okay. Somebody said, I'll give you a punch. Okay. So you want to get a desire. So it comes in. So basically what comes in is perception. We perceive things. Then what goes out is intention. Or you can say intention that has become action. At one level, the mind is like the transmitter. The mind transmits stimuli from outside and then they come to us, the soul, and then they get translated to action and they go out. But that is not at all that the mind is doing. The mind has two main functions. One is, it is a transmitter. Transmitter is what? Transmits stimuli from outside through the body to the soul. And it's also a transmitter of the soul's intentions outward, so they become actions. But apart from the being a transmitter, the mind also acts as a transformer. Now, transform, generally we use the word transform, we use it in a positive sense. But here, it need not be positive. What it does is, it also acts as a recorder, and the recording transforms things. I'll explain what it means. That the mind is basically a tool for us to function in the world. And the world can be very complex. So what the mind does is, when we do an action, especially if we do an action repeatedly, then the mind stores that impression inside. And then it prompts us to do the same action. And this is actually, so what the mind does is, with transform recording means what it does is, it prompts us to repetition. It makes repetition easy. So how does it do that? Or let's understand, why does it do that? And talk about how does it do that. See, suppose somebody wants to learn driving. Now, the first time if somebody wants to drive, generally, if you're not driving, you're watching somebody drive, it's so easy. No? Just sit there on the chair, just move the wheel a little bit. But you actually start driving, then, okay, I have to keep my hands on the wheel in the right place. Don't move it too much. Then I have to look ahead. I have to not just look ahead, look far ahead and close my head also. I have to look at this window. I have to look at that window. I have to look at this meter. I have to look at that meter. I have to make sure that my leg presses on this brake there. My leg doesn't press here. How many things do I have to coordinate? It can seem overwhelming. One of my friends in America is a car driving trainer. And he told me that generally whenever I do car driving, it's like in 1 week, the car that we use, it has about 100 dents. Because people who are driving, they just hit here, hit there. So it's overwhelming. Some people get paralyzed. But the same person, maybe after they drive for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, then after that, not only can they look at all those things, be aware of all those things, but they can also have a meaningful conversation with somebody else in the car. They can hear an audiobook. They can do other things also. So how does that happen? The mind records it all. The mind records it all. This is okay. Now you're sat in this car. Okay, keep an eye ahead, but keep looking here and there also. Make sure that your hands are here. So the mind records things. So the mind's tendency to repeat is a functional necessity. It's a functional necessity so that by repetition, what the mind does is it frees our consciousness for other activities. If each time we draw, we had to focus consciously on everything, then we would not be able to function. So this mind's tendency to repeat is itself a good thing. However, the mind in one sense is value neutral. Value neutral means it is amoral. Not immoral, not moral, it is amoral. Whatever action you do, repeatedly, the mind will prompt the repetition of that further. So I said the mind is, I talk about these three levels. So we compare the soul to a computer system. Soul is the user, the mind is the software, the body is the hardware. So, there's this one thing in India, small thing. Have any of you heard of this? So, now, suppose somebody has on their phone visited a website called Bollywood.com. Now they visit this website maybe once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 10 times. And then as soon as they type B, what happens? Bollywood.com comes as an autocomplete. Now say they come for a spiritual talk like this and they hear about the Bhagavad Gita. So, oh, this sounds interesting. And they said, I want to know more about the Bhagavad Gita. They pick up their device, they open the browser and they type B. And what happens? Now, they didn't want to go to Bollywood.com. They wanted to go to Bhagavad.com. But Bollywood.com comes as an autocomplete. So now, is the phone your enemy when it is giving Bollywood.com as an autocomplete? You may feel it is your enemy. But the phone is simply functioning according to algorithm. Okay, you visited this site many times, so I'll go there now. Now, relatively speaking, if you see, to go to Bollywood.com, it is going to come as autocomplete. But if you want to go to Bhagavad.com, you have to put in a lot of effort. You have to type 12 letters. For some people, typing letters on their phone, typing 12 letters is more than going on a marathon of 12 miles. Not too much, I can't do it. So you have to type that. That requires effort. So our mind is also like the software. So when it gets a particular stimulus, immediately like the browser gets the letter B as a prompt and immediately it goes to Bollywood.com. So like that for all of us also, say we are all pleasure seeking creatures. So whenever I feel I need pleasure, then there may be many kinds of pleasure available. But for a person, say, who's an alcoholic, immediately it will be a bottle. Where do I get to drink? As soon as the desire for pleasure comes, okay, I have to drink. It may not even be pleasure, it may even be relief. I just want some relief. I'm bored, I'm down, I'm stressed. I need to drink. So now they could get pleasure by many means. They could get relief by different means. But that's what comes as the autocomplete. And now if somebody visits a particular website repeatedly, it not only comes as an autocomplete, it can become their homepage only. So you don't have to click any link or type any letter. You just open the browser and immediately it's gone to Bollywood.com. So like that, for some people, as soon as they wake up, the person says, where is the drink? I have to drink. And till they sleep, the bottle is like they drink and they go to sleep. So what has happened is that particular craving has become like their homepage. Now, when this has happened, see, the mind functions by repetition to make things easier for us. But when we want to do something different, then the repetition, the mind's tendency to make repetition easier, makes making a change more difficult. Okay, in the past, say, whenever I used to feel bored, whenever I used to feel down, my go-to was drink. But now, maybe I've become wiser. Now I understand that how harmful drinking is. Okay, so then maybe I'll hear some soothing spiritual music. Maybe I'll read some wisdom text. Maybe I'll do something else. I have those options, but those options don't come in the mind at all. It's even before those options come in the mind, what happens is just this particular prompting comes up, the person goes in that direction. And they are not even aware of what they're doing. That somebody is drunk. After last 10 years, I've been traveling to America for 6, 7, 8 months, the Western world basically. Generally, if we think somebody drinks, they are a drunkard. Well, it's not that simple. Now, everybody has some sense of boundaries. Like if young people go for a party where they're going to be drinking, then while you could say drinking is a tamasic activity, it's the mode of ignorance. There also you can have sattva-guna, rajoguna, tamoguna. Like if 6 friends are going for a drinking party, then they decide that today it is your day of tapasya. Today is your day of austerity. What do you mean? Says, you're going to drive us. So you cannot drive and drink. So therefore, today you have to do austerity. You cannot drink today. And okay. This party is my day of austerity. Next party will be your day of austerity. So they have some sense of boundaries even there. But some people, they drink and then they drink so much. And somebody else says, maybe I'll call a cab for you. If they're a little drunk, they will say, yeah, I think it's good. You call a cab. But somebody else says, they're so drunk that they don't even recognize they're drunk. And then they say, oh, rate the cab. I get long. They can't even speak. So what has happened is the sense of boundaries is different for different people. And I'll come back to this point of boundaries a little later. But I brought this point to raise a question. So with respect to addiction, there are 2 broad views in the mainstream society, and I'll try to explain both these views. See, some people think addiction is simply it's due to low willpower, or you can say no willpower. And then if it's a low willpower or no willpower, that means it's more like a moral deficiency. Moral deficiency means you become more responsible. You just gird up your willpower, become more determined. And you give this up. And it's, I can't give this up. You're just being excuses, just being weak-willed. So that's one view. In politics, there's the right and the left. So this is broadly the view from the right. That addiction is a moral deficiency. Just need to become more responsible, more determined, and you'll give it up. Now, the other is that it is a medical disorder. And medical disorder means you don't say if somebody has got loose motions. You don't tell them, just use your willpower. Stop. You can't do that. So medical disorder means, basically what it means, it's beyond willpower. So this is broadly the view from the left. And here, those who are addicts are often seen as victims. Oh, this person is addicted now. So how many of you think that addiction is a moral deficiency? And how many of you think it is a medical disorder? Yeah, moral deficiency? Okay. Okay. A lot of you are from the right. Okay. I don't know whether you're right. We'll discuss that. Okay. How many of you think it's a medical disorder? Okay. Very. Both is the safest answer. So overall, it's true. I'll explain how it is both. See, if you consider, now I was in Canada. I had gone to Calgary University to give a class. It was on top of a hill. When I'd gone there, it was winter, so I actually saw how snowballs are formed. It's quite fascinating to. We were just going around in the long hill. This is the mountain. So when a snowball is formed, it's not even a snowball, it's a snow pebble over here. It's tiny. And as it starts moving down, it starts becoming maybe a snowball. Then it becomes a snow rock. Then it becomes a snow boulder. And when this becomes a snow boulder, no matter how much boulder you are, you cannot go in front of it. So here, if you see a person, if a person was over here, the person could just flip it with their toe and it would crack and go away. But if the person is over here, that person will get crushed. So as it comes down, it gains two things, mass and momentum. And what is the joke? Forgotten science. Oh, okay. Interesting. So you disturb my momentum. Okay. So why am I giving this as an example? Because see, addiction at this stage, it is a moral deficiency. But initially, if somebody says, let's drink, now that person can say no. It's oh no, I won't drink. Maybe you won't be seen as cool in your social circles. Maybe you'll be left out. You have to find some other social. It's possible. A little price will have to be paid. But it is possible to say no. However, when a person keeps saying yes again and again and again, when the person keeps doing that activity repeatedly, the conditioning becomes extremely strong. As the conditioning becomes stronger and stronger, initially saying no is just like breaking a pebble, very easy. But eventually saying no is like trying to stop a boulder that is coming on them. It's at this point, it has become a medical disorder. Now, medical means, I'm not saying here medical in the sense that you can take some chemicals and cure it. I'm saying medical disorder means like just like for a disease, curing it, willpower alone is not enough. Now, even for curing a disease, willpower is required. If if somebody's got loose motion, well, they also need the willpower. But the willpower is not just to restrain the call of nature. It is more to restrain what you put inside. You have to regulate what you eat. So we have to follow a proper diet to heal. But the idea is that willpower alone is not enough. Willpower will always be required, but in the initial stages, willpower alone can be enough. But eventually, it will not be. So similarly, when the impressions inside become very, very strong, at that time for that person to say no can be impossible. Now we may say, if this is the case, then what is the hope? So that's what I'll talk in the last part of the talk. The first part I discussed is what is addiction? That is craving, craving that leads to consequences, and still there is continuation. And then second part I talk about, how does craving develop? It is, or how does addiction develop? It is like the misdirected, it is the mind's tendency to repeat actions is misdirected when it starts repeating unhealthy actions. And that repetition starts becoming very forceful over time. So how to deal with addiction? I'll talk about it in three parts. Now when Arjuna is saying, Anichanapi Varshnaya Baladivanujita, so this is so forceful, I cannot overcome it. It's his subjective feeling. The addict can feel that I just can't give this up. So now is that the easy way out is, see, in general, the human tendency. Before I go into the solution, yes, human tendency, we are all biased creatures. We would like to believe that we don't have biases, but we all have biases. So what happens with respect to biases? Generally, we judge ourselves positively and we judge others negatively. So if I overeat, I say, I was hungry. If somebody else overeats, what a glutton. If I oversleep, I was tired. Somebody else oversleeps, what a lazy person. So now, of course, this may not always be like this. Sometimes some people have like a pathological insecurity with themselves. So they may always ascribe negative to themselves also. They may be actually tired. A lazy person, I have slept so much. So basically, our assessment of situations is not always factually correct. Generally, if we like someone, we will give them whatever wrong action also, they will try to give an excuse for them. If somebody is we don't like someone, even a small negative action, we will just judge them very strong. So in general, if say we are struggling with something like this, or somebody else we know, somebody we know and care for is struggling with this. Now, is their addiction at the level of just a weak willpower, where it's just a moral deficiency, or is their addiction at the level of a medical disorder? That means willpower is not enough. That is not something which we can judge immediately. It requires patience. It requires careful, empathic understanding. But the point is that wherever we are, change is always possible. So what we need is human tendency, therefore, when dealing with not just addiction, but with addict. Somebody is an addict. Maybe we ourselves, what we need is patience. Patience and then empathy. Okay, don't judge based on one action, one incident, or two incidents only. Be careful, be patient. And then we get a clear understanding. Krishna says in 18:13 in the Bhagavad Gita that intelligence in the mode of goodness is able to perceive carefully what is right, what is wrong, what is beneficial, what is harmful. So for somebody for whom the addiction has become at the level of medical disorder, to just blame them for being irresponsible, weak-willed, that will do more harm than good. On the other hand, for anybody, that's why I earlier said, I was a little hesitant about using the word addiction very trivially. Because what happens is, somebody says, oh, this is addiction. That means, oh, you have no control over it. No, but it might be in a controllable stage also. We don't know in advance. We have to carefully observe. So I'll talk about three ways broadly to deal with this. I'll use an acronym, APT. So APT. The first A is acceptance. We need to accept where we are right now. In a metropolitan city like Bangalore, people have come from different states, isn't it? Somebody might have come from Tamil Nadu, somebody might have come from Maharashtra, somebody might have come from Haryana, somebody might have come from MP. So we all, geographically, we may be from different states. But quite often, psychologically, we often live in the same state. That is the state of denial. We often tend to deny our problem. So, no, we don't have to immediately look at it from a moral primacy and beat ourselves up. Okay, accept that this is an issue. That my mind has a certain conditioning. Denying the conditioning is not going to make it go away. But this is where the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita can actually make acceptance easier. How? How can it make acceptance easier? Because the Gita very clearly explains that addiction is not a statement about us. It's a statement about our mind. And we are different from our mind. So I'm attached, I'm addicted, I am overpowered. Yes, that may be true, but that does not make me a bad person. I'm still a soul, and as a soul, I'm still pure. So if we do not have the spiritual understanding, then that acceptance itself can be very demoralizing. It can be crushing, it can be devastating. No, I'm addict, I'm lost. So, well, I am not addict. I'm not an addict. It is my mind has an addiction. And I have a mind. So it's creating a little distance makes. So addiction is here. There is no addiction in me as a self. So that distance, understanding that I'm still a soul. I'm still a soul who is pure. The soul is still a part of God. Soul is still within, is still a part of God's plan, and that will never change. So acceptance becomes relatively easier when we can distance ourselves from our body-mind machine. So if we do not do this, so if we accept ourselves as the body, ourselves as our conditioned body-mind machine, then we become totally demoralized. But if we don't accept it, we live in denial, the problem becomes worse and worse. So accepting as our identity. So when we're dealing with addiction, accepting it as our identity itself. This is who I am. No, this is not who we are. That accepting it as our identity is unhealthy. Other extreme is denying its very existence. Some people are addicts and they say, yes, like I think it was Oscar Wilde, or no, Mark Twain said, giving up smoking is the easiest thing in the world. I have done it over 100 times. So I gave it up, but it didn't give me up. So denying its very existence is definitely a problem, but accepting it as our very identity, that is also a big problem. So in between is accepting it as a conditioning of our mind. That's why sometimes what happens is in devotional circles, has any of you heard this statement? No, I am a fallen soul. Now, when we say it, sometimes what happens is this fallen becomes so big, the soul is forgotten. And just as we say that, okay, we have a bodily identity, we have gender identity, we have a particular physical complexion, we have particular nationality. All these are features of the body. So similarly, the fallen state is also a feature of the body. It's a feature of the body-mind machine. So sometimes we should not identify ourselves. I'm so fallen that the fallen becomes our soul identity. And we forget that I'm a soul. So we don't want that. So this is the first part, accept it. And accept it without beating ourselves up for where we are. So that's why earlier I said it's like a functional thing. If you see it from a functional perspective, okay, I visited Bollywood.com hundreds of times, and that's why Bollywood.com comes as autocomplete, or it's my homepage. Now, with a device, we can just delete history, or we can just do a complete formatting of the phone. But we can't do that with respect to our mind. But the point is, okay, this is the way my mind is conditioned in the past. So we can accept this humbly and unashamedly. Unashamedly means there is no need to beat ourselves down with shame for this. Now, does that mean that we should be shameless? That's not the point. See, the point is that we have to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. We often talk about relationship with others, and it's important to have good relationship with others. But it's equally important to have a good relationship with ourselves. What do I mean by a good relationship with ourselves? What I mean this is that if say if I have an old car which doesn't work very well, but that is the only car I have, and I don't have the money to buy any other car. I don't have any neighbor or relative who's going to lend me any car. So then, if that is the only car I have to take care of that car. It may not work very well, but that is the only car I have to work with that. So similarly, my mind may be conditioned, my body may be conditioned, but this is the body-mind machine that I have right now. In this life, there's no magic wand that is going to be blown and my mind is going to change suddenly. So this is what I have right now. I have to accept. And I have to formulate a healthy relationship with it. So if I am constantly beating myself up, wow, what terrible, I'm so fallen, I'm so fallen, I'm so fallen. I'm so ashamed. What I did is so terrible. What is so terrible, so terrible. It's like my car, I'm driving a car and the car stutters and stops. And then I take a rod and beat the car. It's not going to help at all. So whatever little functionality was there, that will also go. Isn't it? So when somebody is addicted, at that time, acceptance does not mean that I accept that this is how I am and this is how I'll always be. That's not the point of acceptance. Acceptance means this is the part of me which has a problem. Let me work from here. So acceptance gets us to have a healthy relationship with ourselves. And if we don't have that, we'll only make the challenge worse. So that's the first part. What is the acronym I was discussing? So now P is persistence. Now for the acceptance, the Bhagavad Gita talks about many things. Krishna says that no matter how many wrong things somebody has done, the Krishna is not just Bhakta Vatsala, he is Surudam Sarvabhutana. He is a well-wisher of everyone. That God accepts everyone. So we also should accept ourselves. Now that brings the second part, that's persistence. Now persistence means that when we are trying to change ourselves, when we are trying to improve ourselves, at that time, in a war, one of the key things is choose your battles. It's just because you're fighting does not mean you can fight anyone and everyone. We have to choose our battles. Say like India has many threats. We have Pakistan on one side, we have China on the other side. So now if we have to fight, China is right now at least much more powerful than India. So we can fight if we decide to fight with both of them simultaneously. It's very difficult. We may be heroic, but just because we are heroic doesn't mean we can't be foolish, isn't it? So we have to choose our battles. So persistence means that once we understand that my mind has a particular condition. So as soon as I type B, Bollywood.com comes. Now, as soon as Bollywood.com comes as the autocomplete, I can start getting angry. Why did Bollywood.com? I hate this phone. I hate it. So on the other hand, you may say, oh, Bollywood.com, what can I do? Just let me visit Bollywood.com. That, okay, that may have come. Now, I can't delete the Bollywood.com. But I earlier said the mind is value neutral. The mind is amoral. So what the mind does is, whatever we repeat, that is what it will start registering, and then it will prompt the repetition of that. So what I need to do is, okay, Bollywood.com will come, no problem. Let me still type Bhagavad.com. I type it once, I type it twice, I type it thrice. And the fourth time I want to type it, I just forget it. And B comes, I press the button, it goes to Bollywood.com. Oh, okay. You can beat your mind to go there. Okay, no problem. As soon as you realize it, stop it, go to Bhagavad.com. So here we persist in doing the right thing. And if a person sufficiently keeps visiting Bhagavad.com, after some time, what will happen? They type B, automatically Bhagavad.com. So here the persistence is what? It is in doing the right thing, not resenting the wrong thing. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Raga Dvesha Vimuktaistu. So Raga is attachment. And if you want to grow, also Nati Sakto, Nati Nirvinno. Dvesha is aversion. So when we are dealing, again, when we're dealing with addiction, we're talking here about the point of persistence. Just suppose somebody has a drinking disorder, and then they want to give it up, and they say, I'll never drink. Okay, they say never drink, and after 15 minutes they get the desire to drink. You know, what a terrible person I am. Why did I get this desire? Well, no. That the desire has come doesn't necessarily mean you're a terrible person. That's what you did in the past. See, our intentions may change, but just because our intentions have changed doesn't mean the mind's impressions have changed. The mind impressions are still there. So don't get angry, don't be resentful. Yeah, the desire has come. Okay, it will come, it will stay, it will go. So one unhealthy response is to just become hateful of that. Why is this coming? The other is to just become fretful. Oh, it has come. What can I do? I just have to do this. And we give in to it. No. Instead of that, we avoid. Focus on positive repetition. That means that rather than thinking of the way to deal with addiction is to not deal with addiction. The way to deal with temptation is to not deal with temptation. That means is you have something better to deal with. Like some people are just such great marketers. When if you start talking with them, they will persuade you to buy the product even if you don't need it at all. Some people are such great advertisers that they can convince a person who is living in the polar regions that your most important necessity in life is an air conditioner. They can do that. So the way to avoid that is don't talk with them. And how do you not talk with them? You have someone else to talk with. Sometimes you say, I will not talk with you. We go to a party or a get together, some event, and we don't want to talk with someone. We don't want to talk with someone, but our mind is fully conscious of that person. Who is that person talking with now? What are they talking? Why is he laughing so much? Why is he or she so happy? They are completely consumed with that person. But the idea is have something else, someone else to talk with. Have something else to do. So the key in dealing with addiction is, if we consider addiction to be a bad habit. So I am here and say, this is my bad habit. This is my addiction. Now this has become like a giant. Now, if I try to fight with it, it will crush me. But what I do is, instead of trying to fight the bad habit, it's you build a good habit and let that good habit fight with the bad habit. So now the good habit may not be that strong and it may take time to develop. But if somebody is a trained warrior, they know how to fight, they have no martial arts, they have a knife, they know how to fight with knife, they have guns. And I may be determined. But if I try to fight with that person, I'll be slaughtered. So instead of trying to fight with that person, I try to get a bodyguard. Let that bodyguard fight with that person. So similarly, for us, our bodyguard against bad habits is good habits. So now we may not be able to give up a bad habit, but that does not stop us from developing a good habit. See, this is where earlier when I said that if addiction is like a medical disorder, that means my willpower plays no role. So then is it that I'm completely powerless and I'm doomed? Well, not necessarily. If I consider the craving, the addictive craving versus time, so the graph is sometimes there is an urge, there is a surge. It just becomes irresistible. And it comes and again it goes up. Sometimes it comes, again goes up. Yes. Now, in these periods, when there is a surge, at these points, it may be irresistible. Now, of course, for some people, if the craving is just developing, at that time, for them, this might just be only this much. And that person might be very easily able to give it up. But for somebody else, it might be irresistible. So it's resistible means that somebody drinks, but they're primarily a social drinker. That means they drink because they just want to hang out with the cool crowd. They want to be a cool, and so they become a fool. But suppose they get a better association. They start associating with people who don't drink. They just want to have a sense of belonging. And they start hanging with this new group of people, and their urge for drinking goes away. That means their particular desire, it was that particular habit or craving, that was at a preliminary stage. It went away. But that same thing may not happen for someone else. Somebody may start off as a social drinker, but after that, it's not just they want to hang out with the cool people. That's why they drink. That may become, oh, whenever I feel down, I drink. And after sometimes, it's not whenever I feel down, it's I always feel down. And therefore, I always drink. Now, for that person, just changing their social circle may not be enough. And you judge two people like this, see, he gave it up so quickly. Why are you struggling so much? Just have some willpower. There are few things as discouraging for a person who is trying to give up a bad habit as unhealthy comparison. Because what happens? That person's conditioning is different from somebody else's. So that person gave it up, why can't you give it up? When you start speaking like that, all that it does is it makes that person feel bad about themselves. It makes them feel discouraged, and it can demoralize them completely. So yes, it may be true that when those urges become very strong, some people may not be able to resist them. That means the snow pebble has become a snow boulder. They can't resist it. But the key thing is that those urges are not that strong all the time. Alcoholic may have a craving for alcohol, but it's not that they have that craving to the same degree 24 hours a day. That craving comes. Maybe it comes once a day, maybe it comes once a week, maybe it comes 2 times a day, maybe it comes 2 times a week, whatever it is. But it is not constant. There might be a constant desire, but it's not that constantly there is an irresistible desire. So even if we can't resist the urges, when I talk about persist, it is in these intervals. These are the areas for change for us. During these phases, when the urges are not strong, when the addictive, destructive urge is not strong, that is the time we can be building a healthy habit. Okay, whenever I feel down, I just feel like drinking, or I feel like doing the XYZ, and I just come here. The urge is all okay, but it's not that you feel down all the time. In between, maybe another thing I like is, I like spiritual music. I like kirtan. I like some soothing songs. Okay, let me develop that habit to hear it more and more. So I can develop this habit between the urges. And if we just keep developing that habit, over a period of time, that habit will also become an impression in the mind. And when we start finding, whenever I hear some nice kirtan, I feel good. Okay. And whenever I feel bad, I can also feel good at that time. So over a period of time, this good habit will become stronger and stronger. And as it becomes stronger, over a period of time, what will happen is, whenever I feel down, I want to drink. No, I don't have to drink. Maybe I can just hear some nice kirtan. I can do something else. So now, how much time will it take? So so the key point which I'm making is twofold over here, that even if we can't, there's something which we can't do, even if we can't resist our urges, we can persist between our urges. That is the point of persistence. So again, the same snow pebble to snowball to snow boulder principle. So I persist between my urges for what? To develop healthy habits. So now what will happen is that, say, this healthy habit may be this much, and the unhealthy habit may be this big. So the unhealthy habit is also not able to fight the unhealthy habit. But initially, we don't have to necessarily have them fight. Just repeat. And this is the healthy habit. Here is the unhealthy habit. So what we do is just keep repeating a repetition of the healthy habit, irrespective of whether we are able to deal with or not deal with the unhealthy habit. By this, what will happen is slowly the healthy habit will become stronger. If we keep repeating it, it will keep becoming stronger. We keep repeating it over a period of time, that healthy habit will become stronger than the unhealthy habit. Now, for different people, this may take different amounts of time. And that's why we have to see this as our individual journey. For some people, it may take more time than others, but it is possible for everyone. So persist. When you're persisting, don't persist in thinking that I have to give up this unhealthy habit. Yes, we want to give it up. That is the goal, but that is not the method. The method is, I want to get over that, but the way is I develop a healthy habit. And bhakti is essentially about developing healthy habits. And that brings me to the last part. What was the last acronym? T. T is transcendence. Now, transcendence means this principle of replacing an unhealthy habit with a healthy habit. This is a universal principle. And this can be applied by anyone. But applying this becomes much easier when we connect with Krishna, when we connect with the ultimate reality. So transcendence means that beyond the existence in this world, there is a transcendental world. There is another reality beyond this. And it is with that reality we want to connect. So bhakti is like a healthy habit, but it is much more than a healthy habit. Because in bhakti, we are not just changing the impressions in the mind. It's like I have this mind and I have to change the conditioning. That's what I'm thinking. That's replacing an unhealthy habit with a healthy habit. But in bhakti, we are invoking a divine power. And that power can create the healthy impression much faster within us. And that power, that Krishna's mercy, power of Krishna's mercy, can actually decrease the unhealthy impressions also within us. Extremely strong. This will happen with time. But I won't go into that. I'll talk about transcendence from a practical perspective. Transcendence means ultimately, what can Krishna as the ultimate transcendence do? He can rapidly empower our healthy habits. When I am trying to develop a habit, say I want to develop a habit of chanting or studying Bhagavad Gita, it's I trying to develop it. But if Krishna blesses, Krishna empowers, that healthy habit can grow much faster. And Krishna can also do another thing. He can rapidly disempower our unhealthy habits. But now, when Krishna will do it, how he will do it, that's up to Krishna. So we don't demand it, we don't expect it. It can happen, and if it happens, we can be immensely grateful to Krishna. And we all may have experienced this. So some of us might have been eating meat earlier. And now, if say we are traveling in a train or a plane and somebody opens their tiffin or they're eating meat, most of us will not feel tempted. Oh, I should be eating meat. No, the desire will not come only. Prasad is very easily the higher taste. Even if we had that desire in the past, but now that desire will not really agitate us much. In fact, what will agitate us is the presence of that food. No, I don't want it. But on the other hand, if you're on a plane and say maybe sometimes in these international planes, every seat has its own TV. And then you may turn off your TV, but everybody else is watching TV. Everybody else has some movies over there. You look here, oh, this movie, look at that movie, look at that. You might get tempted by that. So some habits might just go away quickly. Some habits may take some more time to do. So this will happen over a period of time. But I'm going to talk about transcendence from another perspective. That is, that even within the urges, when the urges have surges, at that time also, Krishna can shelter us. So if we consider this material world is like a ocean, it's Bhava Sagar. And we are in this ocean. We are trying to swim and make our way over here. Sometimes the wave comes and pushes us in one direction, we still keep persisting in another direction. But sometimes in this wave, in this ocean, a giant tsunami comes. Now, no matter how determined we may be, when the tsunami comes, it's just going to be swept away. Now we may say, what can I do? The tsunami comes. We cannot do anything. We cannot stop the tsunami. But if we had a strong anchor, a strong object to hold on to, now we will still have to use our force, use our strength. But using our strength to hold on to the anchor is far more likely to be successful than using our strength to stop the tsunami. So for all of us, we need such anchors. And we all can have, I'm going to talk about transcendence later, but anchors are very helpful. Is there something in our life that is non-negotiable? So our anchors, what is our anchor in our life? Our anchor is that which is non-negotiable. the non-negotiables in our life. I was at a conference in America on mental health and on addiction and spirituality. So there are different people from different faith traditions. Alcoholics Anonymous they have a 12 steps program, and 12 steps. The first program is to recognize the existence of a higher power, and they've been fairly successful. So there are different people who are sharing their experiences of how they overcame their addiction, how they got into addiction, how they overcame their addiction. So there was this one man, he told me that he was drinking and drinking and drinking, and he didn't realize that he had a problem. One day he was in his home drinking, and he was just drinking, and suddenly his child came there, and child touched him. And he was so lost in his drug, he just flung his hand. And his child got hurled away, and he fell down. When he saw that, he says, I meant to protect my child. How could I become a monster who hurt his own child? So that was the time he said, I have to give this up. So now, it was a struggle to give it up, but that time, this is something which I will never do. Yes, sir. So now we all have certain non-negotiables, certain boundaries that come from our past culture, from our past upbringing. Our past is not always bad. Like I said earlier, people drink. But for some people, it's really ingrained in their mind. You can never drink and drive. Absolutely out of question. So they have their sense of boundaries. So if we have an upbringing by which we have certain non-negotiables, then those non-negotiables can be our anchor. Now, say, for example, all kids, when they go to colleges, they'll feel tempted. It's a whole universe of temptation that opens for them. But then, if they remember, in India itself, there's so many temptations. Kids go to America, there are far more temptations. But it's remarkable, very few kids from India who go to America, they end up becoming dysfunctional addicts. They may enjoy various things, but very few of them become dysfunctional addicts. Indians are among the most successful minority in America. And one of the reasons is that the family culture is very strong. So Indian kids have that sense. My parents have invested in me. They have spent so much money for me. I cannot waste my life like this. I cannot lose myself in addiction. So the bond with the parents can be an anchor. So we all have certain anchors in life. And whatever anchors we have, the stronger we hold on to those anchors, we'll be able to resist the tsunami even when it comes. We can't stop the tsunami, but you can stop the tsunami from flinging us away. And while there are many anchors, sometimes the storms can be so strong that we can be flung away even from that anchor. We may do something which just a relationship is very important for us, but we do something that just ruins that relationship. At that time, what do we do? That is the time when I conclude with this point now. So, see, I am here, and we make it the tsunami just fling us away. But fortunately for us, Krishna is the anchor. Krishna is the anchor who extends throughout the ocean. No matter how far we are flung away, Krishna is still there in our hearts. No, some anchors are so flung away that that person get lost. I don't care. Krishna never says, I don't care. Krishna is always with us. We don't have the power to ever do anything that will stop Krishna from loving us. No matter how much a person may be conditioned, no matter how much a person may be lost, that person is never lost to Krishna. Krishna is still with that person. Prabhupada says in one lecture that if you cannot give up drinking alcohol, then he says, you think that the taste of alcohol is Krishna. He says, if you just think like that, that thought is linking you with Krishna. And he says, holding on to the anchor, but holding on to the anchor is our consciousness, our thoughts. If we are souls and Krishna is the super soul, Krishna, the distance between us and Krishna is just one thought. Krishna is just one thought away from us always. If we turn towards him, we think of him, we pray to him, we call out his name, that can link us. That can become our grip. And if we have the habit of holding on to that anchor of Krishna, then even if some stormy waves sweep us away, still, no matter where we are swept away, Krishna is there over there. And we can hold on to Krishna, and then we can come back again to safer territory. So in bhakti, there is no such thing as hopelessness. No, we may be helpless, but we are never hopeless. We may be helpless in the sense that some conditioning like tsunamis which sweep us away, but we are never hopeless. And the whole practice of bhakti yoga, we chant the holy names repeatedly, we come to satsang. All this is in one sense our training to have a stronger and stronger grip on the anchor of Krishna. Right now, we may not feel anything. I'm living a nice life. One of my friends, he told me, yeah, I believe in God. He's happy there, I'm happy here. Well, you may be, but the anchor is going to come. The storm is going to come. So we need to learn to hold on. And if we practice holding on to the anchor, then we will find that even the worst of storms, we will not be swept away. Even if we get swept away, soon we'll resume the hold and we will come to a better place. By Krishna's mercy, by holding on to the anchor of Krishna through the practice of bhakti, no matter whatever be the stormy waves inside us or outside us, we will be able to overcome them. We may not be addicts, we may have some attachments, but even those can all be overcome by the practice of bhakti. And therein is when we have this bhakti, we can acknowledge that I am helpless without feeling hopeless. We can acknowledge, but we are never hopeless. Because Krishna is always our hope. And with that hope, we always have the supreme power available for our transformation. So I'll summarize. I discussed 5 main points today. First, I discussed what is addiction. I discussed in terms of 3 C's: craving, consequence, and continuation in spite of consequence. Then I talked about how addiction happens. We discussed about the snow pebble becoming the snow boulder. So is it the mind tends to repeat the same action because it wants to free our consciousness for better things, but that can work against us. So this repetition may lead to initially addiction may just be a willpower deficiency, but eventually it can become a disorder. But whatever it is, there is the possibility to change. So we discussed the acronym. What was that? So first was acceptance. Acceptance means I accept that, not that I am fallen, my mind has certain conditions. Denying it is unhealthy, but accepting that I myself am fallen. No, my mind has a condition. I'm not an addict, my mind has an addiction. That can help us to accept in a way that is not too demoralizing for us. And after that was persistence. That we may not be able to give up the unhealthy habit, but we can persist in developing the healthy habit. And if in between the urges, we can persist. And by doing this, gradually, the healthy habit will become strong enough to fight the unhealthy habit. And the last was transcendence, that we can actually take shelter of Krishna as the anchor who extends throughout the ocean. And by that, we can minimize the effects of the stormy waves that may come because of our conditions. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So, it's very enlightening to hear so much about the concept that we heard from Prabhuji. So we are not stopping here. So few more, we are open for question and answers, and also very important about the books, and something we can interact with Prabhuji personally also is there after 8:30. So my request to all of you. So now we'll be having the Shayanarthi, and after this from 8:30 onwards, we'll be having much more association of Prabhuji. And those who have questions, and I request all of you to stay back 5 to 10 minutes from the 8:30 onwards. Hare Krishna. So while Kirtan is going on, after 5 to 10 minutes, devotees can come and offer lamp to the Lord on account of Purushottam Mass this month. Hare Krishna.